Hi, I'm Jonty.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Malky.
And we put together a magazine called Shibboleth. If you're watching this on video, then we're holding up some of our favorite copies now. If you're listening to it on audio, imagine the best magazine you've ever seen. We are a Christian leftist magazine. If your politics are leftist, if your politics are liberatory, if your faith is deconstructed or progressive, I think you would like Shibboleth magazine, and you can check us out at shibbolethmag.com. And we are sponsoring, with no money, this episode of Bread and Rosaries.
Shibbolethmag.com.
Reconstructing.
Resisting.
Renewing our minds.
Hello and welcome to Bread and Rosaries, the Christian Left podcast based in the UK, a country whose Prime Minister is, let's just see here, Keir Starmer? Is that
time of recording?
That can't be. I'm Emily Headington. I'm joined by Adam Spears. Adam, how is this guy still in charge?
Well, by the time this goes out, is he?
I honestly thought he wouldn't be by the time we recorded this.
I don't think anyone thought he would be, except him. Like, how is he clinging on? I guess it's just because, like, the people who would replace him are all abject shite, basically. They're just all terrible.
I also think there's an element of, like, I think he may have found a loophole, which is, unlike the Conservative Party, I don't know if there's an official way to replace someone of the leader of the Labour Party unless they quit. So I think he's just like, make me quit. I'm in charge. Stop trying to stop me. We are joined today by Micah for the word in black and red, and the only person I have ever heard Adam apologise to.
Oh, what an honour.
I was still right. Substantially. Like,
what I recall of your apology was saying, I misrepresented Micah's position, but my position is correct, and that's what I claimed Micah had said.
Therefore, I'm still right.
Well, it was interesting because I think the position was overly stated as overly harsh at the beginning. So, hi everyone, I'm Micah, the wise old Llama Enby. Please go follow me on the word in black and red. I am also the minister to the Llama Pack, which is an alternative church for folks left on the outside. We have folks in every time zone, and it's a wonderful community to be a part of, especially if you are queer, or leftist, or deconstructing, that sort of thing. You can hear from my accent that I am not from the UK, but not for trying. I married a Scot, and we are hoping to go back to Scotland at one point in the future. Knock on wood. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. So I was very excited to see so much of your country has converted to Scotland's true religion of Presbyterianism when they all voted Reform.
Scotland's true religion is such a loaded term that we could spend the next hour unpacking that idea.
Also, I don't claim this country for my own, so just putting that out there.
Yeah, it's like
I'm not taking responsibility for it.
I think we've always I think the term we use is UK based rather than British, because we're both a bit like, I don't know if I want to claim to be British. Like, I am, but I don't want to have that on the front page.
It's like,
you know?
how the hell have I not got out of this country yet?
Listen, it's the exact same way being an American. There's...
Yeah, look, I mean, I feel like it's that times 100, isn't it?
Yeah, we're both just the recipients and of imperialism, basically, the benefits of imperialism that we're desperately trying to shake off. So,
yeah, only we're kind of. I think both countries are suffering a little bit from the kind of hell of their own making, a little bit, right? Like it is, we were all born a little bit too late to really enjoy the full fruits of imperialism. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but like it's a very specific thing. It's like, yes, the country as a whole benefits from imperialism, but I'm not necessarily seeing a whole lot of it at this moment in time.
Yeah. Well, and to be perfectly clear, like 3 working class fellows. Well, I mean, Ben But anyway, at least two working class people, we were never going to really benefit from imperialism, you know. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And that was just you proving that you are a regular listener to the show.
Yeah, well done.
Getting right in there.
Like I said at the beginning, we were originally supposed to record this 2 weeks ago, and I think up to that point I had listened to like the first 10 or so episodes, and then the episode where where Adam misquoted me, and that was the extent of it. And then I was like, but now I have to listen to the rest so that I am fully fully caught up. I am a completionist, unfortunately, and so but I do really
great.
Enjoy
we now have
show,
two listeners, like.
and hello to Adam's mum as well.
Yes. No, she doesn't listen. I can't make her bloody listen.
I don't know if my mum knows I do this, but I kind of hope she doesn't. Micah, we introduced you as being from The Word in Black and Red. For people who haven't come across it yet, tell us a little bit about The Word in Black and Red.
Yeah, so The Word in Black and Red started because in the Llama Pack, we were having this synchronous Bible study, but we were in every time zone and we couldn't get everybody on. And we were doing a Bible study on the book of Revelation. And every time that we had to talk about a verse of the book of Revelation, I had to stop so often to say, and this is the meaning of this very particular word, and this is the story that it's going back to way back here in Leviticus, which is in and this analogy and this metaphor here is referencing the Psalms, which are referencing the book of Sirach, which is referencing the book of James, all these sort of trains of things. And of course they don't go in that order because James was written far after the other ones, but you know what I'm saying. All of these references that we had to lay a foundation for getting there. And so The Word in Black and Red is a leftist Bible study podcast where we bring on folks who are experiencing the written word, experiencing the Bible in their everyday lives and interpreting it that way. We have a couple folks who have a hyperfixation on the Bible, like me. I have a degree in the thing and then was working on my master's before God called me to the Episcopal Church. And so I have a hyperfixation on it. I love it. I go I go as far as possible into the Bible. But we also have folks who are not Bible scholars, who don't read or speak Hebrew, just everyday people who are interpreting this, are understanding it in reference to other passages, are discussing this as it applies in our everyday lives, and as a method of understanding the ways in which we can use the Bible as the stories, as the sort of past that we look back on to learn lessons that apply to our own leftist organizing today. So whether you are a Christian or not, you are very welcome. Whether or not you are a leftist or not, you are very welcome. It's also a place for queer and feminist and non-white and indigenous perspective as well. And if you have some of those perspectives and you would like to share them, please reach out. I'd love to have you on the show.
Something I really like about the show is that it's... I don't know how quite to put this, but it's almost like a really traditional Bible study podcast in that you are going verse by verse, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. You'd be, it's already going to take you a long bloody time. Verse by verse would be really,
yeah.
But chapter by chapter through the Bible and just discussing that chapter in a way that, is I don't know, feels almost traditional, but obviously doing it with your, the approaches that we would share with you, right? That kind of, leftist and, kind of, I guess, academically informed as well approaches to that stuff. But in a kind of, there's almost something about, the idea of like queering things. That's what I think of. Like, you've almost taken this very traditional approach to, this is a Bible study podcast where we do chapter by chapter through the Bible, but queered it in a way, like in a kind of broader sense of queering it, as well as in the most literal sense of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and right now our season on Leviticus is coming out, and every time that I mention to someone that we're doing a series on Leviticus, they're like, "Well, I'm not going to listen to." But to me, like, Leviticus and Leviticus is used as like the laughing stock or the punching bag of the Bible, of like, oh, I'm so bored getting through that. That's because it's magic that you don't know how to read. Like, we are, as you're looking at this, we are not familiar enough with the anthropology of these ancient societies to understand why they're doing what they're trying to do. And the weird ways that they look at things. And so it's like reading a spell book for something that you don't know what the spells are, or the effects that they have, and all those sort of things. And there is a sort of magic to it that I think comes out in a close reading when you're reading it in reference to what else is happening there. And it ends up being the most fascinating anthropology, because you understand, why is it that that things are not so, why is it that fabrics are not supposed to be mixed in clothing? Why is it that you're not supposed to feed a goat its mother's, or boil a kid in its mother's milk? Like, what are these things that are these strange anachronistic things that are so foreign to us? And how can we understand them in a way that actually helps us to live our lives today? So I am very firmly of the camp that the boring stuff often is the stuff that illuminates way more than just the traditional stories get us to.
Yeah, I think that really comes through in the show, actually. Like,
Well, thank you.
And yeah, I dived in with Leviticus, and had that experience of being like, oh, Leviticus, oh, fine, and actually, you and your kind of rotating guest panel, if that's the right term for it, like, really do pull out the kind of actually what is going on here, and actually. We do find some really interesting stuff in there. You just have to kind of adjust your expectations, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for gassing me up. I really appreciate it. I guess I'll go now.
Yeah. That's all you're here for, is to get pumped up. Well, with the gassing up out of the way, we will move on to start the episode, as we always start the episode, with what else is on my mind, grapes.
What else is on my mind, grapes?
Adam, you have sent me something that made me very angry, which is something that you do on a fairly regular basis. Yeah. Adam's like, I'm having a bad time. Guess who else needs to have a bad time?
What is a best friend for, if not someone to share your misery with?
And Adam has lots of misery to go around. That is. Adam, do you want to tell us about what you just sent, or what you sent me earlier?
Sorry, if I may interject, what is more fundamentally British than being terribly miserable? But anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's wallow in that misery. And this is, I think, a particularly British form of misery, because the article I sent you was a BBC article that I just found incredible, really, because it was wallowing in, when you see people and organizations kind of present something they've done, and in a way where it's like they think they've done something amazing and they're really good, when actually what they've done is monstrous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was an article where the BBC were gloating that after a BBC investigation into asylum, 2 people had been arrested for helping asylum seekers stay in the country, allegedly by pretending to be gay when they weren't gay.
Mm.
And on one level, you can say, well, they were lying about being gay, like you shouldn't lie. Well, on another level, navigating the asylum system in the UK is really hard and exhausting. And frankly, I don't blame anyone for, trying to find a way to make it stick, so that they don't get sent back to somewhere where they could well be killed, because that happens all the time. People are sent back to countries where they face persecution and potentially death because, they haven't crossed a T or dotted an I, And so you've got this article and there's a video that goes along with it, where a BBC reporter is talking about how, the BBC did an undercover investigation, essentially reported it to, the police or immigration. And now the Home Office has turned up and arrested people. And it's just something really dystopian about this, and also I reached a point a long time ago. I know a lot of people are still willing to defend the BBC, but I reached a point a long time ago where I was like, nah, fuck the license fee. Like, if this is what it's paying for, I don't want to pay that. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's really grim stuff, and you kind of just look at the journalist or journalists involved in it and think like, is this what you want to be doing? Do you tell people at dinner parties you're an investigative journalist and what you're doing is trying to get asylum seekers deported? Like, it's, I expect it from GB News or whatever.
You expect investigative journalism from GB News, Ben?
I expect exposés of asylum seekers apparently, allegedly doing things that are wrong. The thing you got to remember as well is that the rules that the Home Office put in place for asylum seekers are complete nonsense and are liable to change. And people who actually should legally have the right to stay in the country get booted out. And so, as you said, do you blame someone who probably has a completely legitimate case for staying in the country, but is scared, worried that they're going to get booted out? And the other aspect of it, of course, is there's always been this thing of so if you're saying because of my nationality, I can't go back to where I'm from, but you have to prove that, or ethnicity. We have if you are a Christian who says I'm going to be persecuted if I go back to my country, so we have lots of Iranians that are here in this country because they're Christian, and they are actually expected to prove, they have to get a letter from their pastor, they have to provide evidence that they have been actually involved, and they get asked theological questions and stuff at the interview. Here's your problem. If someone is saying that they are gay and therefore needs asylum because they will face homophobic persecution, what evidence are the Home Office actually going to ask for? Genuinely, this is a real problem within the system, and there is a history of the Home Office being prove you're gay, which is obviously this really weird and gross thing to ask. But also, I think the problem fundamentally comes down to a completely messed up system that doesn't actually make any sense. These people are not the problem. The problem is the whole damn system.
I don't know. I think the BBC just clearly came up with a gaydar. They invented a gaydar and then they scanned it and it didn't go off. It didn't go off for anyone else, but it didn't go off for these guys. So it, clearly, or maybe they invented the blood test. They figured out what the gay gene is. It was right there next to the midichlorians and they didn't see any gay gene in these guys. It's what is the Home Office supposed to do? And in the past 20 days, how many dicks have you sucked? What the fuck are they supposed to do? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but as a queer person,
we're not. You are.
as a minister to queer people, I saw them. I affirmed they were queer. Cool, we got it. We were at Bible study together. They told me about how many penises they had touched, and they were gay. I'm sorry, it's there. I'll sign whatever fucking paperwork they need.
Yeah, absolutely. But for legal reasons, no, you won't. If you do still want to come back to Scotland at some point, this is all never. Satire.
Yes, entirely satire, and also plasticine action. I am entirely against Lego people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what the thing is there. If you say, in America, that you support Palestine action, but it's released on our podcast in Britain, but we haven't said that. I genuinely don't know what the legal status of the podcast is at that point.
We're journalists, Adam. We're just...
Excuse me, I'm trying to immigrate back. I did not say that I support Palestine action.
Well, I mean, I have faith that God is going to intervene in the kind of legal process and force the court to come up with the correct decision on this. But I understand why you might be reticent to say the thing that we can't say.
And what a bizarre thing to not be able to say. Anyway, I was under the impression they were no longer prescribed. Is it? I thought the court...
It's complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, it was found that it was illegal to have prescribed them in the first place, but the prescription was not lifted until the Home Office's appeal had been heard. It's mad, isn't it?
This is why people don't think your country is a real place.
Not my country. Not my country.
It is sadly all too real.
Unlike Israel. Anyway.
That's anti-Semitism. I can't believe you would say that.
So, before we get ourselves in any more trouble, shall we move on to today's main topic, which is that, Micah, you are here as the very first in-person complainant to the show. I'm basically here to let you and Adam hash out your differences over over Adam's conduct. But joking aside, Adam has had to issue, actually twice, he had to apologise for misrepresenting you and your theology on hell.
I didn't have to apologise. I chose.
You chose to, yeah.
Out of the kindness of my heart, out of grace, in order to keep a relationship alive, basically.
Well, I complained really only because Adam and I have been supposedly going to work on something together for 3 years. So at this point, I went back to our TikTok conversation, and it's at least 3 years where we've been like, yeah, we should get on each other's podcasts, and we should do a live together, we should do something. And so I'm excited to finally actually be talking with y'all. But so my undergraduate thesis was on universalism, and Christian universalism in particular, which is the idea that through Christ all people will be saved. And there's lots of different ways that you can be a Christian universalist. I think that some of them are less theologically grounded than others, but there's basically a minimum of 16 different quadrants. And because there's what I call the evangelical concept of hell, which is that hell is eternal, that hell is populated, that hell is inescapable, and that hell is torment. And if you deny any of those first four, you are a universalist of some kind. Like, if you think that hell is not populated, or maybe it's just that hell exists entirely. Some folks say that hell just doesn't exist. They can say that heaven exists and hell doesn't exist, and there's all sorts of variations on that. I think that there is biblical evidence that hell exists. There seems to be conversation in the Bible about refining fire. There is conversation in the Bible about a destination for some people to go to. There seems to be biblical evidence that there is a hell. You can deny that it's populated. And this is a good popular opinion that comes up from the fact that when Christ dies, he goes down to hell and he redeems all people. He breaks the gates of hell, is the traditional Christian understanding. And it could be that everybody left hell then, and hell still exists, but nobody's going to go there. Or lots of different variations on that. It could be that hell does exist, and some people will go there, but it's not inescapable. And that's my route there, is that it is escapable. I don't think that hell is a place that everyone goes to, or anyone goes to forever. And I think that if you believe that hell is escapable, which the Bible never says isn't the case, the Bible never presents that you have to be saved in this life to be able to get out of torment. It never gives that. It never places a limit on God's grace. Hell is not more powerful than my God. But you can still accept that salvation. You can still accept that grace after death and then be redeemed. And then there, of course, is the position that hell exists, but God's grace is already so superabundant that it has poured out on everyone, and so no one will go there. But my position sort of waffles between the different forms of universalism, but I tend to think that hell does exist, that some people will go there, probably most of us will for at least a little while, and then we will go to heaven, whatever heaven is, salvation is. And really, the point of that to me is that for a Christian universalist, our purpose here in life is to try and live into heaven now, to create that heaven in this life, to be equipped against the hellishness that we live within, and instead build a world that God wants to see here. So anyway, what I'm recalling Adam has as having said is basically, some people deserve to go to hell, and so they're going to go to hell, and that we just have to deal with that reality. I do think that that some people will go to hell, and eventually they will get out of there. I think that some people will continuously choose to not be redeemed, and they will be there for perhaps millennia. There are people who are just so selfish and evil Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler and George Bush and all sorts of folks like this, who
Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, I apologize. I couldn't think. I was a terrible feminist. I didn't think of any evil ladies. I want to own that. These people who are so fundamentally selfish that even looking at divine love itself, they will try to deny that. And I think that every time that they try to deny that, you are losing some capacity to have free will. And my theory is that basically renders you a Nazgul, sort of this empty hulk, this hulk of a person, this ghastly apparition. And at a certain point, God doesn't need to respect your free will anymore in hell and can just go whoop and you're in heaven, because it would be better for you. It would be more loving to you to no longer respect the free will you can't actually make and bring you into heaven because of that. So that is my official written down opinion. And if you ask me what my actual opinion is, it's going to waffle a lot more between lots of different options. But but all that to say that I do think hell is real, that some people will go there, and that we should be praying for mercy for those people in this life. Maybe we can convert Elon Musk to Christianity and he won't have to live such a miserable life trying to attain $10 trillion at the expense of everyone who might ever have a chance to love him.
But Micah, maybe I want Elon Musk to go to hell.
Yeah, and that's why you and I aren't God. Thank God,
One thing some people might kind of raise as a potential issue with kind of your view as you've described it here is when Jesus talks about the rich man and Lazarus.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you deal with that one? Maybe we should sketch out what it is first of all, actually.
Yeah, that's great evidence of my view. Thank you for bringing it up. So in the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, first off, it's important to note it's a parable, right? The rich man is the nation of Judah, right? Is the Jewish people in this instance. It is people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing ethically, and so are going to be experiencing hell, right? That is what the metaphor of this parable is meant to be. If you instead turn and treat poor people the way that they are meant to be treated, then you will not face this eternal damnation, right? But it doesn't say that the parable does not say that no one is able to reach over that divide. And it is true that before Christ broke the gates of hell, that no one could cross over it. But then Jesus died and came back to life and changed that scenario fundamentally, that Christ provides this means of salvation by embodying God in our human life, but also in our human death, and in so doing redeems even death. And so the parable of the rich man, Lazarus and the rich man, I think first off shouldn't be taken into real consideration when we're talking about heaven and hell. But if you are going to take it into consideration, think about the fact that the rich man never tries to turn and repent. The rich man is still trying to get Lazarus to work for him. He still sees himself as fundamentally superior to Lazarus, and so has in no way done anything toward repentance. And so, of course, he's not going to be able to cross over that boundary. And Jesus also isn't going to subject Lazarus to continue to be the slave of this rich man in death as he was in life.
So Johnny can't be here tonight, but I decided to be really unfair to poor Johnny, and I just sent them a message just saying, "Is hell real? Yes or no? No prevarication." And in fairness to Johnny, they came back with no, which I really respected that they did not try and split the difference. As I can't resolve the idea of hell when we say that God is loving and compassionate. Massive contradiction otherwise, and that's not okay for me. Which I think is probably a not unusual kind of for those people who would say hell isn't real, there is no hell, like that doesn't work. Because that doesn't square with God's love. I think that's a fairly kind of common and very understandable approach to this. But you kind of take a slightly different different tact in terms of how you kind of reconcile God's love and compassion and the potential existence of hell.
Yeah, so I think that if you are the kind of person who believes in free will and that free will has to be respected, then there has to be an option for people to choose to not be with God, right? There has to be some capacity for that. But I think that if you and these days I'm not sure that free will matters to God, but we'll set that aside for right now. Instead, if you are the kind of person that thinks that, then we have to think about how we are actually being prepared for the afterlife. One thing that's interesting as we've been going through the book of Leviticus is the fact that holiness is contagious, right? If you touch something on the altar, you can become infected in holiness in a way that is dangerous to the way that you live the rest of your life. And so how do we prevent that sort of, why is that dangerous? Why is that a problem? Well, because you are being prepared for something different. You are being set apart. You are living your life differently. The Eastern Orthodox have this interesting conception that heaven and hell are not actually separate places, but instead different experiences of the love of God. If you have in no way spent your life loving, then suddenly having to love people is going to be really painful. It's like if you had never worked out in the gym and then were being forced to bench lift. I don't know. I don't work out, so I don't know any of these terms.
I was going to say, like, who are you calling us out here? Like,
no. I'm bad
Adam
at this
is
analogy.
a secret. Adam is a secret gym monkey. Don't let him get away with this.
Okay. But it's like you never had. It's like you never work out, and then suddenly you have to move all your furniture. Or you have to squat 300 pounds. It's going to be incredibly painful to do that, right? And I think that that's going to take time and training and beating out a lot of the things that most of these people just need a lot of therapy to get through, and that's probably going to be painful for a lot of folks. I don't think that hell is like Dante's Inferno. There's very little in the Bible to suggest that, but I think that hell is probably a place where you have to face the fact that you have hurt all these people, and that is probably going to be incredibly painful. Emotionally, I don't think, because you're burning up in pieces. But it's interesting because fire in the Old Testament is almost always a symbol of lighting the path and bringing you to where you're supposed to go. And so my view is really of purgatory. Hell is purgatory more than anything else. So I don't believe in hell as the evangelicals believe in it, but I think that we do have to take seriously when the Bible is talking about hell, that it is imagining a place that really exists.
You've just kind of conjured the idea for me of like demons as therapists, which is such a wonderful.
Hey man, I've met some therapists.
But yeah, do you know what? You kind of went. I was going to ask you about. It feels to me almost like. It is almost like a kind of, I think, to be fair, not necessarily a properly Catholic understanding of purgatory, but how purgatory is maybe understood by the layperson in some ways as this kind of place of refinement. And that idea of the point of fire isn't necessarily to burn people to death or to cause pain. The point of fire is it's a refining tool, right? Like it's used to, refine gold in particular, as I understand it.
Well, and the trouble is that, like, when I talk to some universalists, the mistake that universalists often get wrong is ignoring verses that they don't like just as much as infernalists do. Infernalists is another term for the evangelical concept of hell, the people who think that hell is...
And is also a much cooler name as well, infernalists.
Yeah, which is why I don't like to call them that. So don't give them anything that makes them seem cool. They ignore verses that they don't like. And to me, it is far more dangerous, because it is a heresy, to ignore the verses that say that God doesn't get what God wants. The Bible is very clear that just as in Adam all died, so in Christ all shall be made alive. that God is not willing that any should perish, but that all shall attain eternal life, that every knee shall bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Like, all of these clearly state that God wants everyone to be saved and that everyone will be saved. And if you have to say, well, when they say all, they actually only mean this subcategory of all, then you're just doing a heresy. And if you're saying that your God is less...
Sorry, I missed it. I was too late on the previous one, so I needed to.
And yeah. So there's that heresy there. But if we, on the other hand, reject out of hand the idea that there needs to be justice for the immense amount of suffering that some people have done, that also is a problem. I don't think justice is done by meeting finite sins with infinite punishment. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think it's biblical. It's not based in the Bible. It is based on a really poor reading of a couple of verses. And ultimately, the insider-outsider cult that is the root of evangelicalism. But instead, if we actually take the Bible seriously, we have to see, on the one hand, God's immense desire that no one be separated from God, and the idea that it will take time to repair some of the breaks in relationships that have been caused by people like Hitler, like Trump, like Margaret Thatcher. And that is going to take time, and that is going to be incredibly painful for some people before they get to experience everlasting love in perfect community with everyone else that is heaven.
In my work context, we do something called the kind of therapeutic approach to children's care. So this is for kids that are in care. And one of the ideas we talk about a bit is the idea of difference between guilt and shame. And guilt being feeling bad about something you've done, and shame being feeling bad about who you are. And actually, like we talk about, actually, sometimes we do want the kids we work with to feel guilty, which feels really weird. But guilt is a good, productive emotion. Like guilt can lead to change. It can lead to self-reflection. It can lead to progress. Whereas shame is a destructive thing. Like the shame is not valuable. There has no power in that. And I was just kind of, as I was having a read through what you sent over, I was thinking about that kind of guilt-shame distinction, and it felt like there almost was a bit of like, hell is a place for dealing with guilt. There is God does not want us to feel shame. Like shame is not what we're going for here, but that actually there is a level of kind of healthy guilt, and hell almost as this place to kind of work out some of that guilt and make the changes we need to make.
I've talked too much, but I just want to jump in here and say that, like, in our liturgy as people in the Anglican tradition, well, again, exceptions to Ben, but we have this moment of the passing of the peace, and most traditions still have the passing of the peace, and it's one of my favorite things, because that is the time you're supposed to go and apologize to the people in the church who you've hurt, and make sure that you are right with them before you go and receive communion. Like, it's almost always right after the confession, because you're confessing to God, and now I have to go make right with those other people. And it's the same thing, I think, that when you are in the passing of the peace and you know you've wronged someone in your congregation and you have to go and make that right, it's embarrassing. It can bring up a lot of feelings in my experience of shame and guilt. But when I make those things right, then I am able to authentically receive the body of Christ, instead of feeling that shame up until I receive the body of Christ and then wondering, did I do that right? Should I have received Christ, when in fact I was still in this bad standing with someone that I love and who loves me? And I think that hell is really, in as much as hell exists, is a place where we are able to escape those things so that we can truly enter into heaven, rather than just a place to torment all the people we don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, as the person here that has been in trouble for misrepresentation, I'm interested to know actually what your whether you're kind of on board with this, or whether you have a slightly different take that you've been ventriloquizing poor Micah with.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder whether there's a difference in approach to scripture as well. So I can well appreciate that there's scriptural evidence for many versions of hell, and no hell at all. And that's kind of the problem for me, is that ultimately at some point you end up prioritizing certain verses over others. And for me, I've just sort of landed in this place where, yeah, okay, maybe I am kind of dismissing verses that might point to a version of hell, but I kind of don't really have a problem with that, because, obviously, as we know, the scriptures are complicated and not necessarily internally consistent things. And for me, I'm always looking to maximize the grace and love of God. And I just don't believe that God requires any form of punishment. I think, I don't know, it's really difficult to kind of explain a lot of this stuff because we're talking about stuff that's really kind of metaphysical, right? And we're trying to talk about metaphysical stuff using very, very limited language that really only has a frame of reference that is kind of material, is kind of in the physical. And so when I hear you kind of rationalizing what you're saying, to me it sounds and feels like, I think there's a moth in my hair.
It does feel that way. I understand
that is
feeling.
Fantastic metaphor.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like to me, I'm not. This is not me saying that you're actually saying this or whatever. But to me, what I hear is something that sounds. I can't believe I'm about to say this as someone who like really believes in a kind of very material kind of form of Christianity, a very earthy form of Christianity. But it feels like using like physical, material, kind of corporeal language to explain something that is fairly fundamentally metaphysical. And I'm struggling to get my brain beyond that, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I suppose that, and to be clear, I wrote this thesis while I was very much so a progressive Baptist, and so it is interesting that I have probably changed my perspective enough over the years that I am now referencing back to something that is a lot more precise than what I actually believe. And like I said at the beginning of this, I waffle a lot more, but I think that the struggle I have now is that the idea that there simply is no hell is also an idea that there simply is no accountability and there is no struggle for relationship. And I think that love is just a lot more messy than that. I think love in real relationships, it doesn't have to be punishment, but it can be painful. It can, there are people who I'm going to have to apologize to for whom it is going to really hurt that I have to say sorry.
Now you know how I feel with this whole podcast, so
yeah. So I just think that I think the idea of cheap grace is a problem here. That this evangelical concept that I've prayed the sinner's prayer, and so I no longer have any sort of social responsibility or loving relationship that has to be fixed with anyone is more dangerous. It's not more dangerous than thinking that there is a hell that everyone goes to except me, right? Let's be clear. But but I think that having a more nuanced position of saying that process of getting toward what is perfect is painful. I don't think we get to an anarchist utopia without a revolution. That revolution is going to be painful. That revolution is going to be hell. But I think going through it, we will get there.
Yeah, that's really interesting way of putting it. Kind of a revolutionary conception of hell almost, which is not something I've really kind of thought about before, but there was something, interesting about the idea. And I think that's quite a powerful image to consider. We might come back to that in a moment, but before we do, we will take a bit of a break from our main topic to discuss this week's Saint of the Week.
Saint of the Week.
Adam has got in the habit of rejecting my offerings for Saint of the Week, and therefore I have made it Adam's problem this week to give us the Saint of the Week, knowing that and I'm going to be here ready to jump on any potential reason to reject them.
Well, I don't think you're going to have one with this one. This person is a bona fide saint. So this one starts in the 13th century in a little village near Lyon in France. And around kind of 1250, there's a Dominican inquisitor who you might have heard of called Stephen of Bourbon, which is my closest, most accurate French pronunciation of that place. Don't judge me. And he's traveling through the area. He's actually from not far from there, but he's traveling through the area, and he's hearing confessions. And as an inquisitor, he was an early inquisitor. He's looking for any signs of any kind of dubious local religious practices.
Just a quick question. When you say inquisitor, those, like, their actual job description is to be one of the people who goes onto QI.
To QI? Is that a reference I'm not getting?
You don't watch QI?
Yeah, I do. I don't know the Inquisitor.
The Inquisitor. I'm sorry. It was just a terrible joke. I apologize.
Terrible joke bombed by Adam just not getting it.
Yeah.
Remove this filth.
What does an Inquisitor actually do is what I'm asking.
So an Inquisitor is someone who basically their job, so they're basically the Dominican order at that time, part of their job, it is this thing of going around looking for any kind of normally like folk religious practices that are not sanctioned by the church, basically. And so, most infamously, this happens in Spain, where, you have the Spanish Inquisition, and there's a lot of bloody nonsense there. And like, to what extent being an inquisitor is just inherently a bad thing is up for debate, right? I think Stephen himself is actually quite an interesting guy and not the worst person you can imagine in that role, but we'll get to that. So so he's hearing confessions, and as I say, as an inquisitor, he's looking for signs of any kind of dubious local religious practices. And as he's hearing these confessions, it becomes clear to him that in this particular area, there's a lot of devotion to a local saint he's never heard of before, called, I'm going to do some French again, Saint Guinefour. Right? Saint Guinefour, that's my best attempt. Who local people believe will cure their sick children. And the more he learns about this saint, the less impressed he is, to the point where he goes and finds the shrine and burial place of this guy, digs him up, and burns his remains. And he does everything, and he does everything he can possibly do after that to suppress the veneration of this guy in the local area. And he is largely successful, but he's not entirely successful. And it's worth noting that the last known pilgrimage to the woodland where his shrine had been to try and get a cure for a sick child was in the 1940s. So there's still, and up to the 70s at least, there was still a local kind of community, communal memory of this. So largely successful, but not entirely. So I'll tell you the story of this guy, of Saint Guinefour. So there are a few different versions of the story, but I'll try and give broad strokes. So we're still in the 13th century, but we're a bit earlier than when Stephen of Bourbon is actually writing about it. And a knight leaves his home and goes out hunting, or possibly on business. And like in some versions of the story, he's the local lord, and it's both he and his wife who go out. But either way, like they leave their baby at home in a cradle, being looked after by Sanguinifor. And again, depending on the version of the story, possibly a nursemaid as well. And while he's away, a venomous snake gets into the nursery and heads for the baby. But Sanguinifor sees this and obviously tries to stop the snake. And there's a struggle, and the room is left in chaos. There's furniture everywhere. The cradle is disturbed, possibly overturned, again, depending on the version. And there's just like blood everywhere. And when the knight comes back, all he sees is absolute devastation and blood. And he sees Sanguinifor next to the cradle with blood all over his muzzle, and he assumes the worst. And obviously, he's in absolute despair, and he kills Sanguinifor, his faithful greyhound, on the spot.
Okay, I was really worried. I was really worried that Stephen of, I believe in American it's pronounced Bourbon, that Stephen of Bourbon, the priest cop, was the saint of the week. I'm so much more relieved that this is a dog.
Of course, it's a bloody dog.
literally bloody dog.
Yeah. So anyway, so he kills Sanguinifor on the spot, his faithful greyhound, but only then does he actually realise that there's a dead and bloodied snake in the room, and the child is not only alive, but completely unharmed. So obviously the knight is absolutely overcome with guilt, and he takes Sanguinifor, buries him in a well, covers it up, and plants a tree there. And in some versions, a shrine or a marker kind of grows up around the grave, particularly because over time, local people hear about the story and begin to treat the site as holy. And people come and, like especially parents, bring sick or like frail children, hoping for healing and protection from Sanguinifor. And I think, like for me, that's the important part, because Sanguinifor becomes like a real kind of people's saint. So, you know, like you've got people who are basically using the tools they have in a like really hard time to be alive, to have hope and to care for children who, like, especially at that time, are like really vulnerable. And they recognize Sanguinifor for like his care and protection and like loyalty to the point of death. And I think, you know, for me, okay, so the church didn't recognize those things and even decided that Sanguinifor was like a trick of the devil. Like that's literally what Stephen of Bourbon thought.
Boo.
Yeah.
I think he's the devil. And not in the sense he's a therapist.
But like, yeah, I think this is genuinely interesting, because I think there's a lot of folk wisdom that gets trampled on to this day by like church elites that really isn't how they characterize it, and like often represents a threat to their power and control. So I would say for all those reasons, I commend Sanguinifor to the Bread and Rosary's official canon of saints. But I will also say there is a wider kind of folkloric context here, because this story follows pretty closely a common kind of trope in folklore of a motif that kind of turns up where you've got like the loyal hound. And there's a Welsh story called the story of, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Gelert, which is kind of the best known version of this motif that turns up in folklore, which like is very, very close to this story. But we're pretty sure that Sanguinifor really did exist and really was killed. Like, we don't know all of the details, but like the reason we know a lot of this stuff is because Stephen of Bourbon himself, who as I say, I think is a really interesting character, not the worst person in the world, but like he wrote about this because he was a fairly extensive writer and like a sort of early historian of heresy. And he himself says, yeah, I found the body, like this is what I did. So there's more than a grain of truth to what we know of this. And I think, the reason I think that Stephen himself isn't as bad as I think maybe we might want him to be in this is that as an inquisitor, like you saw inquisitors doing like a lot of really awful things, right? Like they would often use like torture for there is no good reason to use torture, but I'm going to say for no good reason at all, right? He didn't do that when he was suppressing this cult. Like he was quite measured in the way he went about it. And yeah, so I think an interesting character. It just sounds to me like kind of a tragedy at every stage. So yeah, Sanguinifor, Bread and Rosaries, Saint of the Week.
And you know that I'm not going to say no to that because I love dogs. Like that's, you knew that I was looking for any reason to turn that down.
He really had me going with the priest cop. I thought that I was like, I'm ranking up the reasons.
I really like that. I think you're really right. There's something really beautiful about the kind of like community saint thing, right? Like there's not necessarily official recognition. In fact, officially there's a rejection there, but people make their own or develop their own understanding of what is saintliness within their context. And I think we should bring back the cult of St. Guinevere. We're going to do when we're millionaires from podcasting. We'll do a group pilgrimage to the site of St. Guinevere's grave.
I mean, I think people do go and visit because there is a woodland named after him now, like St. Guinevere's Wood. So I think people do go there looking for something, but I think probably people don't really go there as a kind of official kind of pilgrimage where they're genuinely looking for healing for their kids anymore.
We're bringing it back. That's what we're doing now.
Fair enough. As soon as we find a child sickly enough, we'll do it.
I'll put an advert out.
My children are trying to survive on American health care, so we need everything we've got.
Pilgrimage. That's it. We got a pilgrimage.
Yeah. Forget insurance. Put all your money into pilgrimages.
That's basically what the American government is trying to do right now. With Secretary Brainworm. So.
Yeah. The only place that we and RFK are on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It reminds me of my favorite saint of the moment, Santa Muerte, which is almost certainly
very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost certainly the goddess, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. I speak very little Spanish and even less ancient Aztec. So I believe it's Michoacaculate. Nope, that's not right.
You rattle off a lot of fancy words, don't you?
So I'm just going to call her Santa Muerte because I've desperately mispronounced that. But she is this goddess that in the Aztec religion that never really loses a cult, that gets syncretized into early Christianity. And Saint Brigid, the Irish one. Bridget, thank you. Saint Bridget is similarly one of these that is almost certainly just an Irish goddess who gets folded into the pantheon, not an actual historical person, or if she is, just like bygones removed from the actual historical person.
Remove this filth.
But we just know historically that this is almost certainly one of this goddess. But I love the idea that even death, the personification of death itself, gets redeemed in Christ's blood. Like that death itself is transformed from this ultimate enemy that we have to fear and be terrified of into just another Christian along the path, a friend through whose door we have to pass to get on to the ultimate place. And so one of these days when I have any money, when we all become millionaires because of podcasting, I'm planning on getting Terry Pratchett's death on my forearm so that I can look down at my friend to death. And I when I had cancer, that was honestly one of the only things that got me through, was thinking about my own mortality and saying, well, what if death is a friend instead of something to be afraid of? Maybe this is my God powerful enough to even transform the thing I'm most afraid of into something that can be a blessing for me. Not to be all like sentimental and emotional on this podcast, I apologize, but
no, that's a really interesting way of considering it. There's a really I'm a bit of a fan of. I mean, yes, definitely a fan of the Pratchett death, but I'm a big His Dark Materials fan. I don't know if you've read that, but there's a scene in the third book of the original trilogy where they go to the world of the dead, but they're on the kind of shores of the dead. So not actually in the world of the dead proper, and there's people who've kind of accidentally found their way there, and there's some. They've basically everyone there has their death with them, and they talk about how some people like to banish their death a long distance away, but there's a bit where there's this very old woman lying on a bed with her death kind of entwined with her alongside her, and they're kind of chatting and laughing and whatever, and kind of does talk about that sort of thing of like actually at a certain point it's a comfort to know your death is an old friend who's been with you the whole time. I think it's really interesting. Different way of thinking about these sorts of questions, right? So, shall we return back to what happens when you die and you've met your death? And I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, this question of why does this stuff matter? Because I think it's we can get caught in the weeds, and I think all three of us probably have a bit of a enjoyment about sometimes getting caught up in the weeds of some of this stuff. But if we're talking about the here and now, and for kind of what it means to be in the world now, why is it important, do you think, to think about questions of the afterlife and hell and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's important because it's secondary, and I think thinking seriously about the secondary things helps us refocus on the primary things. The evangelical conception of Christian life is you got to get saved so you don't go to hell, and that's it. That is their main modus operandi of we got to get everybody saved. We have to convert everyone to our way of living, so that you don't actually think about what their teachings are doing to you. And I think if instead we think about death seriously, if we think about what comes after this life seriously and say, okay, this is my understanding of what this is, that God's mercy is so great that no one can get left behind there. Well, what does that mean about what I need to do here? What does it mean that heaven is something out there and that I'm living here? If I know everybody gets saved, what's the point of this all? Well, if everybody gets saved in the end, then the point of this life is to be as much of that life as we can now. And that's much more in keeping with the God who says, I have come to bring life in all its fullness in John 10:10, or who preaches so often about love of neighbor, or who preaches so often about how terrible money is, right? Money, this tool that we try to use to avoid death. If we think about that secondary thing and put it properly in its place as this is the other thing that we think about, the long-term thing, then that helps us refocus and say, well, if God's got all that handled, how can I be useful here and now? And I think that ends up meaning that if I don't have to convert you, I can spend a whole lot more time loving you instead. And in my experience, that has converted a whole lot more people than I ever did when I was trying to run around and get everybody saved because I was afraid of them going to hell. I'm not even trying. And yet people are talking to me about the fact that my explanation of Christianity, my way of interacting with Christianity, the ministry that I'm doing at the Llama Pack, that I, among many wonderful people, are doing in the Llama Pack and programs like this and all sorts of other things, have brought them back to faith because they see a faith that can be focused on loving people now, which I think is doing God now, rather than just waiting for all of this to be done, because there's nothing worth doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think there's something, particularly for those of us who kind of came from more conservative understandings of stuff in our past. I think there is something potentially redemptive about this. When I was asking Johnny about some of their thoughts on hell, they kind of said they still occasionally get that kind of oh my god, I'm going to hell fear, even though they don't actually believe in hell.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. I'd never had that, but my thing was always. I worried about people I knew. Like I would lie in bed as a teenager and think, well, this person who's great, like this family member who's great, isn't a Christian, and like when I'm having fun in heaven, they're going to be burning in hell, and that seems like kind of lame. And I wasn't questioning any of that, right? Like I wasn't being like, and therefore this doesn't make any sense. I was like, yes, that is absolutely what will happen, and that really makes me sad and worries me. And so I think there was, I was, I think. I read Love Wins by Rob Bell when that was the big kind of controversy at that time, and kind of just went, yeah, all right. I was already well on the way of deconstructing what I'd been brought up with, and some of the old assumptions I'd had. But yeah, well on the way, and then that kind of made me go, yeah, all right, and actually kind of, for me at least, quietened any of those fears, concerns, whatever. And yeah, I guess there was something about actually. Part of freeing people from some of the stuff that binds them is by offering them a more redemptive version of hell. Adam, do you think the same sort of thing? Do you think it does matter, or are you kind of not as concerned about it?
Yeah, the problem with this is that my brain got lost attention and started wondering if llamas, guanacos, and vicuña are allowed in the llama pack as well. So that's what I've been thinking about for the last 5 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. We are the llama. We joke that we're the llama pack because we weren't allowed in the sheepfold. So if you were also not allowed in the sheepfold, you're very welcome with us.
Yeah,
alpaca's welcome. All comers. Great. We will even accept straight people, so y'all are very welcome to join us.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, that's a mistake. I'll be honest with you.
I think you need to stick exclusively with South American camelids, frankly. Ben, maybe you should try asking the question in a different way.
Why or does it matter to talk about hell for you, Adam? Is there value in kind of working this stuff out?
I mean, there's clearly value in working this stuff out because there are still so many people who believe in it, right? So it's work that we've got to do whether we want to or not. And the kind of traditional or traditions that are sort of adjacent to the traditional idea of hell, so to speak, do a lot of damage to people. As you kind of were just saying, I did catch bits of what you said, Ben. People still they're still kind of damaged by what they've been brought up with or what they've believed at one time, what they've had put into them by the kind of conservative or fundamentalist or whatever churches that they've been going to. So it's work that we need to do. It's work that needs to be done. I think what matters for me is always centering God's grace and love in that. And so for me, I have to land in a place where even if we say that there's some form of hell or purgatory or whatever you want to call it, I mean, I take what you were saying, Micah, about things that might have. Well, I think I spoke before about, say, Gregory of Nyssa. Gregory of Nyssa was a very early kind of proponent of an idea of hell that was essentially a universalist idea of hell, that it was a purgatorial fire where people might go to be kind of refined so they could enter the presence of God. I don't agree with that, but I've got more time for it than like eternal conscious torment or whatever.
Yeah.
And the same with this kind of orthodox idea of hell as essentially being more of a state than a place, right? Like everyone enters the presence of God, and God's love shines bright like a fire, but fire can either be something that brings warmth and comfort, where you want to sit around it and roast marshmallows, or it can be something that burns your house down with you in it. And if you've lived a life where you've hated others and you've sought only your own gain, where you've obsessed over money, where you've accrued billions at the expense of other people's lives, I can understand why coming into the presence of God, we might imagine that could be a very painful thing, because there's a lot of work that would need to be done there. I guess for me, I just can't imagine that God's love, just being in the sheer presence of God, wouldn't just instantly bring someone into God's presence in a positive way. And I don't think that necessarily has to, that we have to say with that, well, then how are we holding them? We're not holding them accountable. I just think that a lot of that work is kind of being done very, very quickly, maybe. I don't know. Because ultimately everything's restored. And I think that's what matters.
I mean, yeah, and we fundamentally agree 96% of the way. We just disagree on how painful and how much time that that redemption is going to take. But I think it is worth exploring, because how the hell, pardon the pun, or maybe allow it, is Elon Musk supposed to be in heaven? How the hell are these people who are so fundamentally selfish that they will castigate off and sentence millions of people to death? How are they supposed to be there? And I think that God's mercy is absolutely overwhelming, but how are they supposed to be transformed in a way that won't be painful? It makes me think of one of my favorite jokes that I grew up hearing. So this is not a progressive take by any means, but rich man dies, and as he's dying, he has himself surrounded in as much gold as possible to fill up his mansion, so that when he dies, he will appear in heaven and have all of the gold he could ever imagine. And he gets up there and he drags each piece by piece up to the pearly gates, and it takes him years to get all of this gold there so that he is fully supplied. And he goes to the pearly gates and he says to St. Peter, "Let me in." And St. Peter calls out, "We got another shipment of pavement." How incredibly painful would that be, to think that you had spent all of your life doing this worthwhile thing, and then realizing that you were missing the entire fucking point. Why is it that Elon and Trump and Margaret Thatcher do all these evil things? Because they're trying to make up for a fundamental lack of love in their life that they are not experiencing now. And so it is bared out as a fear of death and evil to so many millions of people. And I think coming to terms with that, even if you don't believe that there's any sort of hell, or there's no punishment or anything, I have to imagine that is going to be incredibly painful, to realize your life that in this world looked like it was the most accomplished, and all of the accolades and all these wonderful things. You might even win a peace prize from the FIFA World Cup. It might even have that spectacular of life, and then you get to heaven and it is useless. I think that'll be hard. And I, for one, am perfectly willing to open up my arms and accept those evil people but I think, some deep part of me hopes that it is somewhere far away from us. God bless the Tsar and keep him far away from us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not. What I'm going to say isn't necessarily a direct response to that, but it does sort of get me thinking about, what the extent to which I might believe in a hell. Because I don't necessarily disagree that that process is going to be painful on some level. But I also think, when I think of hell, I think of a hell that these people have created here on Earth now. And I think, okay, it looks different for them, but I also think they're living in it, right? You can't tell me that Elon Musk isn't someone who is going through some form of personal hell.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I say, that's a very different thing to the kind of hell that he's forced on people through his evil capitalist exploits. But it is a form of hell. But it's also it's a collective thing, isn't it? It's less of an individual thing and it's more of a collective thing. And I often end up in this place now where, and I appreciate maybe I'm sort of underplaying a lot of like individualism, not individualism, individuality these days, which is probably something I need to kind of redress. But I do return to a lot more kind of fundamentally communal understandings of a lot of these principles to say, well, if hell exists, we're in it together. And some people feel it more than others. And some people feel it less than others. But it's here and it's all around us, just as heaven is here and all around us.
I guess the question we're fundamentally wrestling with is this balance between love and justice. And I think most conversations about hell are about actually what does it mean to say that God is love, but that God is also just. And the bad version of that is that he is just because, like kind of full Calvinism, he's just because he punishes almost everyone. He is loving because it's unbelievable loving that he'll let a few people not burn in hell. And that's a very bad and silly way of dealing with that problem. But it does recognise the problem, I think, actually. That and I guess what your approach allows us to do, Micah, is say that there is some sort of justice happening there. And, the history of hell as a concept, because it's kind of not really there in the Hebrew Bible, right? It only really emerges in that intertestamental period as a concept. And it emerges in part as a response to the recognition that God is meant to be just, and yet justice is not happening. Well, that must mean that there is some post this world justice that is going to be doled out. Otherwise, God is not just. And I find that incredibly kind of, I think for a long time I was just hell doesn't exist, like, don't be silly, like, or whatever. But I kind of find that quite a compelling argument for some sort of justice post this life. And what I find interesting in your idea there, Micah, is this idea that it's almost like God is not the one doling out this justice, but that these people have almost done it to themselves in some way, like that they are in this kind of in this moment they are realizing quite how fucked up they are, and that is the kind of, it is not that God is punishing them, it is that they are having a bad time because of the choices that they have made. And I can see how that's it's a way of safeguarding God's love whilst still allowing justice in some sense to happen.
I do pretty fundamentally believe that evil is a human construct. This is a whole other theological tangent that I am not going to subject y'all to. If you haven't been too annoyed by my American overzealousness, invite me back and we'll talk about my postmodern theories on God. But I pretty fundamentally believe that evil is a human construct and the result of human fears of death. But it reminds me of that quote that to the privileged, equality feels like oppression, right? That if you take away all of Elon Musk's money, which means that he's suddenly able to actually engage in human relationships and be loved by other human beings without this constant fear of you only love me for my money, which, to be clear, Elon Musk, if you're listening, no one has ever loved you because you were a decent human being. Anyway, maybe cut that. But you are living in this constant fear of never actually being loved for who you are. And then suddenly you have the one thing that makes you valuable taken away from you. I think that's painful. I think that justice does look painful to people, even if there isn't punishment, even if there isn't anything like that. And to be clear, again, I don't think that hell is punishment. I don't think that it's torment. I just think that hell is going to therapy, and therapy is painful and raw, especially to folks who are so just outrageously privileged that that they're incapable of seeing the equality of their fellow human being. But I feel like I keep just restating my point again. So
yeah, I that's a really interesting way of approaching it. We will definitely have to have you back at some point to talk with Johnny about all your mad postmodern thing, because they will love. We'll just set the two of you off, and it can be postmodern love.
I ain't coming to that episode.
Well,
I'm gonna take that one off.
Here's my contention. Actually, is that people? I have friends on Twitter, the word in black and red, that tell me that I don't believe in total depravity, but they tell me that I do believe in total depravity. In the same way, Adam, you claim to not be a postmodernist and hate postmodernism, but you actually are fundamentally very postmodern. So anyway, it's just one of these words that, like, because Charlie Kirk threw it around a bunch, and Jordan Peterson, who has no fucking idea what any academic term ever fucking means, that they think that nobody really understands what postmodernism means. And in fact, I think we're all swimming in it.
I have to say, bringing up Jordan Peterson very much does, like Adam's point of these people who are in a hell of their own making right now.
Yeah,
that really does seem like Jordan Peterson is a perfect example of that particular problem, doesn't it?
Can you imagine having to live your life now with all of the shit coming out of the other end instead of how you've made your living?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
I'm sorry, that joke bombed so bad. You can pull the diarrhea joke.
I'm still in awe of what happened to the guy who's like his whole thing was like, I am a bit transphobic and I tell young men to tidy their bedrooms, and then like a kind of a potentially, you could see how there was a space for that in the kind of intellectual ecosystem, even if I thought it was very bad and stupid. But the speed at which it was like, I only eat raw meat and I'm addicted to benzos is quite incredible. Like,
I think the biggest sin he's committed is ruining lobsters for everyone. I think lobsters are fundamentally cool creatures. I really like lobsters, and now I can't wear my lobster slippers without feeling like I'm channeling Jordan Peterson somehow.
Yeah, I mean, isn't there also there's the film, isn't there?
Lobster, yeah, it's amazing. I watched it with my then housemates, like not quite 10 years ago, and I think there were two of us in the room that were like, this film's amazing. And then everyone else in the room was like, what is this?
Anyway, we are very badly off topic, but I think that's probably about all we have time for anyway. Mm-hmm. So, thank you very much, Micah, for joining us to chat through your ideas of how. And what we'll do is, when we want you back, we'll slander you again so that you can to come back.
You can do it this time, Ben.
Well, slander me often, then, please. First off, I need it so that my purgatorial hell isn't as long. But y'all can find us on thewordinblackandred.com, where you can join our Discord communities and become a part of the many wonderful things that we have going on there. I am very excited for where we are headed in the near future, and I hope y'all will be a part of that. So.
Yeah. And a firm recommendation for the Word in Black and Red is, a kind of, even if you think Leviticus sounds a bit much, it's genuinely a really interesting and insightful thing. Adam, where in the world can people find you?
You can find me TikTok, Instagram, various other places at CommieXIAN.
Brilliant. For those of you who want to get in touch with us, particularly if you have complaints to make if we've misrepresented you, all our contact details are on breadandrosaries.com. Please do get in touch. We love to hear from people. Thoughts, suggestions, feedbacks, ideas, all the rest of it. Really, really welcome. So do get in touch with us. All our links are on there, including a link to our Patreon, where you can throw some pennies to help us keep running. Otherwise, that will do us for this week. So thank you very much both for joining us. Thank you for listening, and we will see you all next time. Goodbye.
See you later.
Bye.